I'm Cyrus Chu. I would like to thank Jim Heckman and Johnson for making this workshop possible. I have about 15 minutes. This is not a complete research, just a presentation to you what kind of data and what kind of perspective we can learn from intergenerational transmission. Okay, in the past, very brief review of the literature. In the past, two measures of inequality. One is a static, one is a Gini coefficient. The second one is a dynamic, one is the intergenerational mobility. Normally, we measure it by IGE, intergenerational elasticity of incomes. We focus on this intergenerational mobility in this presentation. But there is always the correlation between static and dynamic measure. For instance, Denmark, the country with low Gini coefficient usually have a low IGE, weak intergenerational transmission. In the past, most of the research focused on quantifying the IGE. Not much discussion about the mechanism behind nature, nurture, social institution. Part of the reason is that for empirical, even quantifying, not to say analyzing, quantifying the effect is difficult because we need, we have a high request for data. We need to have a permanent earnings, not just single year income. We need to have a permanent income for both generations, so that has a very extensive need for panel data. In the past, most data sets, we have very few observations, and we have measurement errors in income. We have sample homogeneity. We don't have wealth data. Gary Becker perhaps put too much trust on the previous research from Berman and Taubman and Robert Hauser. They estimated the IGE in the United States about 0.2, 20%. But then Gary Solon in 1992 re-estimated, making some adjustment in the measurement error, saying that the United States is about 0.4. So in the past, Sweden is about, IGE is about 0.28, 0.3, and Canada, a research by Korek summarized that United States is higher than European countries. East Asian countries is about, such as Korea and Singapore, is about the same as the United States. But not much has been said about Chinese societies. The latest research summary is that the IGE would be higher if there's higher genetic traits, genetic transmission. It would be higher if there's a more efficacy of investment in children. It would be higher if the return to human capital is larger. It would be lower if the public investment, public school is more prevalent. Okay, that's the previous part. A more recent one, perhaps the 2015 paper in QJE, they have a breakthrough that they use the IRS data. It's 100 million points. The whole population of the IRS data. They estimate the log IGE, or the rank. They separate the parents into 100 parts and the children into 100 parts, and estimate the rank as a regression. They conclude that a 10% increase in the parent's income will cause, say, 3.4% increase in the child income, both in log and in rank. That's about what they have said. Now we have a unique Taiwanese data. We have even better quality compared with the Chatty data. We have 1998 to 2013 tax filing data of all Taiwanese people. This is about 9 million points. The income includes wage income, capital income, and other incomes. And we also have a wealth data. The wealth data has a publicly traded stocks, X-right, evaluated at the X-right date. We have bank deposit, we have house, land, we have cars. So that facilitates us to do some of the intergenerational transmission study. But we also have some data limitation. I'll get back to that.
Sorry,
yes.
Just a clarification.
Yeah.
In this literature, do they use pre-tax or?
Pre-tax.
All pre-tax.
All pre-tax.
Well, not all. I mean, there's a range of estimates that are presented. You get a very different IGE depending on whether
Yes.
you're free or opposed and just how generous you put in transfer payments.
Yes, yes.
You get the Danish system to be pretty close to the U.S. IGE.
Yes.
Like measure capital income or transfer. So anyway.
I have a big table summarizing a cross-country comparison, but not in this slides. Okay, for fun, I'm going to present 4 M questions. The first M is mobility, IGE. Second one is what kind of children will own the Maserati, that's M. The third one is to estimate the intergenerational matrix, transition matrix. The fourth one is assortative marriage, okay, all from the text-based data. The mobility, okay, that's what we do. Because our data is from 1998 to 2013. So we identify children aged 14 to 16 at the time we begin to have our data. That age must be still under, they are still dependents. Then we identify who their parents are, who filed the tax return to claim them as dependents. So we find their parents, their fathers and mothers. There are so many children, so we pick out the eldest one in that period. And then we estimate, we calculate their parents' average income, their child's average income. This approach is about the same as Chatty, okay? It's special, except that Chatty's time period is 1980 to 82, and we are from 82 to 84 because our data period starts about 3 years later than American data, so that's the best we can do. So first result is to look at the IGE, rank, or log. As in the literature, we control age and age square. It turns out that Taiwan data has a very low IGE, both in income and in rank, compared with Chatty. Yeah.
Why do you include kids? Because that sounds like a pretty endogenous variable.
Yeah. There are many endogenous things. I just finished this in 2 days before. I haven't had the time to make all adjustment or modification. Okay. Yes. I have to go back to Chatty, see if we match their research exactly. Perhaps we can drop the kids. Anyway, this is very low, but not if you look at the data from here. Here's a intergenerational comparison, IGE. German data is pretty low. The highest is this one, British data. The US data is about 0.4, okay? We will explain why Taiwan is low later. The father-son scenario is the same, except that this is individual data. So Taiwan is low for some reason. And the second thing we do is that we separate, as in Chatty, Chatty separate their analysis into different states of the United States. See how the IGE change across states. Okay, there are 2 things. One is the IGE, that's the slope. The second thing is that we check if there's any additional help from the father being in the top 1%. Chatty claimed that rank thing is linear, but it turns out that Taiwan, the very rich group, has an additional effect. It doesn't look like a linear one for the very rich. This upward mobility is the following. It's defined as father is being in a 25% from the bottom. What is expected rank for the child? So this is the situation. I separate this table into two parts, as in Chatty, that the black black 6 things are urban areas. The lower 3 parts are rural counties.
This is based on, just for clarification, this is based on where the father was born, or the children being living elsewhere, right?
This is based on where the children is when they were 16. Where the tax return was filed when the boy was identified. So give you a brief picture. Urban area is here. This is the poorest county, poor county. Poor county is like red. If you want to compare, United States lowest is Charlotte, 35.8. Highest is Salt Lake City. I have no idea why Salt Lake City has the highest upward mobility expected rank, but that's the situation. So in this part, we tend to conclude that rural area has a slightly higher IGE, but compared with United States, the difference is a lot smaller. As you can see, the difference here is not that significant. But United States has has a large difference. Mobility by age of child income, because we don't have a permanent income measure. So when we measure child's income at their age 30, 31, 32, 33, the IGE measurement will be different. But in Chatty's paper, they claim that the IGE will converge after the child is after age 31. That is not the case in Taiwan. Even at the age of 34, it doesn't seem to converge yet. We have perhaps a reason for this. We have a 2 year of compulsory military service. So for male, they can start to earn money at least 2 years after the age of the United States boys. And we also have a very high participation to MA and PhD program after 1995. So we have to wait for about 2 years to see, because we can continue the exercise every year. We have to wait about 2 years to see how the data become. Then we move to wealth. That is the part the Chatty doesn't, they don't have. Again, we identify the children and identify their parents' wealth. There are only 2 countries in the world that I see in the literature that have wealth data. One is Denmark, the other is Taiwan. Okay, this is the intergenerational wealth mobility, both rank and log. And you can see that the Danish data, the log is about 0.27. In Taiwan, the wealth transmission IGE is about the same as Denmark. If you
The tax system must be really important.
Yeah.
Like the tax system, if you have a high heritage tax, that will reduce the mobility.
I don't know. This because the tax authority have this wealth data, partly to tax and partly to legitimate the ownership. For instance, if you do not register, the house is legally not yours. So registration is a precondition of ownership. That makes this data very accurate.
How many of your parents have died by the time we ended the sample? I mean, I think these parents are too young.
Too young to die.
In this particular.
Why are the parents too young?
I mean, because they're 90, their kids are only 14. when they, in 1998, so they were probably 42, so they're probably already, they're still 60 to 75.
But there could be inter-people transfers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the tax laws of each of the countries.
It's not inherent.
Yeah, it's not all of these.
I don't think this is an
Yeah.
inheritance story yet.
For the
It's not,
parents are poor, right? The money's coming from the kids to the parents as opposed to vice versa. So I don't think inheritance is so important for Taiwan.
now, in the data, we checked how many families transferred backwards, that is children to parents. It's very low, less than 2%.
It's 4 to 1. 4 times as many kids transfer to parents as vice versa. So I'm really surprised by that. That's like Korea around 2004, something like that.
So can you go back to the earnings, the wage data?
Yeah.
You showed, with low
Income data, not earning. Yeah.
Is that smooth over multiple years or just single?
Yes, it's smooth over 3 years or 5 years. We tried everything. Okay, so we are surprised. Yeah.
Capital income.
I'm sorry?
What you're calling wage data also includes capital income. In other words, if a family is transferring some assets in the course of a life.
Yes, the income include wage income and say dividends. That's capital income. Everything, every income.
So the first wave is including that as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because we found that when we compared, I've been working with a Dane actually, making U.S.-Danish comparisons. If you include capital income, you find that the U.S. IGE and the Danish IGE, even for measured earnings, very similar.
Mhm.
Very similar. Much more similar than if you kind of exclude capital income. So the capital income is a strange quantity. A lot of people aren't having any of it. So there is a humpy danger. I don't know if you've investigated that. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this IGE for wealth is much larger than the IGE of incomes.
Yeah, the capital income component, adding that in and not adding it in makes a big difference, it turns out. Calculation line, at least in the Danish, US.
We are still trying to figure out the income is a flow idea, but the wealth is a stock idea. Yeah. Anyway, we also do that for different areas. This is the city area, urban area. This is the rural counties. So the IGE wealth measure is much larger than the income measure, and that is similar to the result of Denmark and the United States. United States also have a PSID measurement of IGE of wealth, and that was the paper by Hurst, Charles and Hurst, and it's about the same, 3.37. Okay, the rural-urban difference of wealth mobility is smaller than the income mobility. So is that rank IGE linear? It turns out that it doesn't look like the case in Taiwan because the interaction term, other than the rank, if we add an index variable, the interaction term of top income group are always significant, and it's very large. So it appears that the IGE is not, as Chatty claimed, a linear estimate. It is likely to be nonlinear for the very rich, especially the very rich. For the top 0.1%, that's twice as large as the coefficient of rank itself. Okay, this is about the same story. IGE is not likely to be linear. This is the composition of parents' assets versus children's assets. As you can see, the parents, they like lands and housing. Children, they prefer stocks, slightly. Okay, the children's ownership of land and housing is much smaller than the parents' ownership proportion. Okay, this is a preliminary study. We we try to see what kind of people will own expensive cars. We also estimate the wealth transmission. The A0C is 0 is the year 2003. C is child. We try to see how the child's asset in 2012 is determined. How much was it determined by their initial wealth? That is, how much is the effect of they have a golden spoon to begin with. Now this is the regression. I'm not satisfied with this regression yet, but we don't have the time to change it. The interesting so far is that we see that parents' wealth has a significant influence on the child's wealth after 10 years. Okay? After the child begin their own career, the parents' wealth still have a significant influence on the child's wealth. And then to the luxury car, we only restrict to the following brands. Okay, Aston Martin, Bugatti, Ferrari, Koenigsegg, Lamborghini, Lotus, McLaren, Maserati, Porsche, Bentley, Rolls-Royce. I think they are expensive cars. What kind of child? Oh, we restrict the child to be less than 35. I want to see how young guys can own such cars. The interesting thing is that their income is not significant. Okay, they don't earn their cars, but their parents' wealth is significant. Okay, their parents' wealth is significant. So, well, as we can imagine, a child below 35 can own a Maserati is most likely not something they earn, he or she earn, but gift. Then we try to identify what kind of child will be the top 1% real estate owners. As you can see, again, parents' income are significant, very significant. Of course, they are.
Huge sample, so you always get significant. The issue is the magnitude.
Yeah, the issue is the magnitude, but this is not significant, okay? This is a huge sample. So the young guy's income cannot explain how they own expensive cars. They are not significant. They are not. Okay, this is a mobility matrix. The conclusion, roughly, is that the top 20% and the lower 20% are more persistent. Persistent in the sense that the lower 20% is very difficult to move out, and the top 20% is very difficult to move down. If you look at the refined matrix, that here we divide income group into 20 blocks, 5% each block. You see that the very rich group is very persistent. They have a very high number here. Very poor group is very unlikely to move out. Okay, the lower ranks are even collapsed. We can only start from 1 and jump to 6. This is the daughter situation. The daughter situation is worse than the sons in terms of the poor, but in this part, they are more likely to move out than the son. Son is something like 17 and 9, and the daughter is 15, 8. Okay, for the wealth, it's even worse. Okay, this is very large number in this part, a very large number in this part. So the persistency is very strong for the very wealthy group. For the daughter, it's weaker. Okay, this is for the son. This is for the daughter. The difference is quite significant. So intergenerational income wealth mobility of the highest 20% and lowest 20% are more persistent than the other groups. Similar results hold for the setting of 2020 blocks, 2020 matrix. Top group persistency more serious for sons than for daughters. Then for marriage mating, this is also preliminary. We look at the tax return data. We find out those people who jointly filing at time t, but separately at time t-1. We identify them as newly married. Okay, maybe some error, but I cannot find a consistent difference. Okay, we restrict to people, males age less than 40. I don't want to analyze the second marriage matching. We did some very preliminary calculation that the husband-wife's wealth correlation is 0.08. Income correlation is higher, 0.27. Random matching is almost zero. Okay, this is a kind of evidence of assortative mating, but we are not sure whether the assortative mating, the sorting thing is the husband and wife's wealth or the husband's father's and wife's father's wealth. We can do that. No, but we have to have, this is a 3-year average of income, say. Then we have to have at least 1 year positive. We choose them. But for wealth, it doesn't matter. Wealth is independent of working status.
What about education? If you just look at the sorting on education.
The tax return doesn't have an education data. That's the
Before marriage or during the marriage?
1 year before. Yeah. So the correlation was low because that makes me wonder whether the sorting is the insistence of the couple or their parents. I would guess this is parents' insistence. Yes, I could do that. I didn't have the time. Okay.
Yeah, so how much wealth is people have before they're married? It must be very low.
It's hard to say for very rich people.
But you should have that.
Yes, yes.
But for the 90% of the population, it's extremely low.
Yeah.
For the majority, it's low.
So
Yeah.
for the rural people, they are still living together, the parents and the children.
I'm sorry?
Even the grown-up children, they still live with their parents or they live independently.
Live independently.
Live independently.
Yes. So that's why we restrict to children. We can identify, say, 1998. That's the earliest time we have the tax data. So they are still dependent in 1998. So we can identify who their parents are, and then we analyze the behavior in 2013.
Timing issue here, because when I think of the big wealth transfer in connection with marriage, it probably takes place after marriage. Maybe the parents help the new couple buy basically help them buy a home.
And not necessarily, because in the tax law, in Taiwan's tax law, you can have a gift tax-free every year as long as the amount is less than 2.2 million NT. So the well-planned parents always make their gifts every year. So they accumulate into 30 years as $1 billion.
Okay, so it's not a big lump sum.
Yeah, it's not a lump sum. Lump sum will be subject to tax. I don't have much time. Okay, here's the regression similar to a research done in the United States. That is, you regress somebody's, say, wealth. Other than their parents' income, you also regress on their parents-in-law's income. That's a kind of assorted mating idea. And it turns out rank or log is about this size. So own parents' elasticity is larger than parents-in-law. That sounds intuitive.
That's combined husband and wife. Well,
No. That's it depends on income or wealth. Wealth must be individual. Wealth is registered under one name. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop here. My time is up, but some PSFD data, I'm going to skip this.
Is it consistent?
Yes.
Same estimates by GE? Same low estimate?
No, you mean PSFD?
Yes.
PSFD, we estimate the IGE? We didn't estimate this part. We just estimate the mobility matrix.
It is consistent.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
I guess we should ask, are there any questions? I mean, I would ask one question to start it off, and that would be to say, how do you interpret any of this? I mean, one of the big problems with the IGE, this whole literature, has been it's very theoretical. So the question is, does a low IGE or a high IGE result of parental transformations, or is it a result of labor market policies after people get skills? We're finding, for example, in Denmark, that if you look at skill transmission, and look at that mechanism, like the IGE of education of a child to the parent to the child, that's about the same in the US and Denmark. Where all the kick comes is actually Denmark has much more equal policies in the sense of transfers, taxes, and so forth. So I think it's productive to think about breaking out the family mechanism from the labor market policies that could lead. Because if you have a very egalitarian society that essentially redistributes wealth, no matter what, you're going to find, basically a very low correlation, right? It's totally. So we're finding that's what's going on in Denmark. But Denmark has amazingly high level of family influence on things like educational attainment, levels of skills, and the like. Very surprising, but even though it has a much greater fraction of education, money of the GDP spent on education, more on preschools and so forth. I'm just wondering if it's a general question about the IGEs. What's the economics underlying it, and what are the policy implications? Is it tax transfer policy, or is it really just family influence?
Well, for the low IG in Taiwan, I would say that it's part of the reason that is that children enter into the labor market late, about 3 years late. I can fully answer that after 3 years. I have to follow 3 years. Here, our data is about 2 or 3 years short to the age of 35 to wait a couple of years.
Okay. But it'd be interesting just to see if you looked at like the tax transfer policies between the U.S. and Taiwan. I mean, how generous is the welfare state in Taiwan compared, say, to the U.S. or to Denmark? I can certainly tell you Denmark is much more generous than the U.S. in terms of tax and transfers. But in the U.S. versus Taiwan, I don't know the Taiwanese case that well.
That will need another 20 minutes to answer. I just uploaded a paper to WPID, World Top Income Database, arranged by Atkinson and Thomas Piketty.
Uh-huh.
So we compared income inequality in Taiwan, Korea, Japan, Singapore. It is very difficult to explain the difference because the tax system, the exemptions, the welfare, even the accounting system may contribute a little bit.
Right.
The difference.
So would you say that Taiwan is more, after 98, is probably more pro-poor than the U.S., right? I mean, in terms of transfers, in terms of education, I mean, that's would be my impression, right?
I can say that.
Much more.
Very.
Yeah, yes. Very pro-poor.
Well, very high level of progression in the tax system, but also what about transfers? Social Security, unemployment insurance, and
Well, we have the best, we have the best health insurance system.
Yeah.
It's much harder. But I would not, I may not say that, I don't have an objective measure to conclude that Taiwan is both better than the United States.
not better, but just look at measures of progressivity, right, in the tax system and the transfer system. Get a sense of how much.
Well, our income progressivity is mild. The highest income percentage bracket is 40%. But our inheritance tax rate is extremely low. The highest margin tax rate is only 10%. So one cannot make a conclusion.
John?
I just like, sorry, to go back, to go back to my earlier point, with the growth in these Asian countries like Taiwan and Korea, what is the average income of the parents relative to the kids? And almost accounting, in terms of accounting, it has to be pretty relatively small, I think, just because the kids are in the labor market when wages are much higher. So you could probably calculate that pretty easily from your data.
We can calculate that. But again, the top income group makes a difference. Let me say that.
Oh, sure, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the top 1%, the top 1% group share Korea and Singapore and Japan is much higher than Taiwan. But for the top 0.1%, we're about the same. I don't know why.
Sure, I was like David Otter. I'm wondering about the other 99%. Anyways, I'd be
Give me an
interested
email.
to see that.
I'll
Send you an email right now. Yes,
And you're going to
thank you.
circulate this. You're going to circulate this paper that you made and the comparison.
Okay.
And we'll post it to everybody in the network.
Okay.
Please.
Now, you can relate to comments on the top 1% or top 5%. When the richest Taiwanese, most of them live in China, doing business. They buy property in Shanghai, Shenzhen, or even in Beijing. Have their wealth been counted in the Taiwanese record?
No.
So how do you deal with this issue? So because in Taiwan there's very progressive taxation. It's a trend for the rich Taiwanese migrate to mainland to escape the tax system.
The foreign income, including Chinese income, Vietnamese income, or United States income, it's extremely difficult to be discovered in Taiwan because Taiwan doesn't have tax treaties with many countries. We only have 27 countries signed treaties, mostly in the Central and South America. Nobody puts money in it. So if you put your assets or income in the United States, there's no way you can show the Taiwan data.
So probably they will see the very low share of the top 1%.
But even that, it cannot explain why the 0.1% share of the very rich group are so much closer to Korea, while our top 1% is very far apart.
The very rich guys cannot escape because they are.
They escape. They escape.
They go to Singapore.
Well, why should it be the same? Why should it?
Yeah, in fact, my comment is related to this because I think it's well known that there are most assets that people in Taiwan have hidden overseas, especially in the Virgin Islands and so on. Leaving aside actually the mainland. The mainland, in fact, it's possible to track to some extent, or at least to have to sort of some sense. But the kind of investments through tax shelters actually in the islands or Virgin Islands is well known. And in addition to that, it's also that many families in Taiwan, of course, historically had migrated sometimes from Shanghai to Hong Kong and then to Taiwan, and then some of them have migrated within the region to Singapore and other parts of Southeast Asia. So in that sense, actually, your data is, of course, underestimated to some extent, but I think it's still valuable to think about some of those issues, yet also recognizing the challenges of measuring the efficiency of the economy.
Okay. Anyway, I see your point. The undervaluation because people put money abroad. I understand that, but that should.
It happens in other countries too, right?
That happens in other countries too, but that should not shrink the gap. They should enlarge the gap. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's the other way around. I cannot explain.
Okay, so you're not going to offer us a general theory yet. But I think it's important that we think about that in the course of the conference and in the course of the agenda, to think about the basic model. You wrote down a model at the beginning, Solon and so forth, but you didn't give us the components of it yet. I guess you plan to do that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.